TOPS Professional CC&R Code Setup. This course will walk through setting up CC&R codes for use with the creation of violation records in the CC&R module. We will discuss the naming of the CC&R codes, setting up the violation action table, and copying codes from one community to another. To access the CC&R codes, we'll first click on CC&R and then CC&R codes. CC&R codes are designed to help you save time. When you set up a code, you'll enter in standard language based on the type of violation you are dealing with. When it comes time to create the actual CC&R record for an owner who is in violation of the rules and regulations, selecting the appropriate CC&R code will populate the violation record with this standard information, thereby saving you from having to retype this information every time you create a new violation record. Using CC&R codes also helps to keep the violation descriptions consistent across all violations of the same type. To create a new CC&R code, we'll begin by clicking the Add New button. Next, we'll have to name our code. This is typically a 3-letter abbreviation of the violation type, although you can also use numbers or a combination of letters and numbers. We suggest the first letter of your code be the category of the violation to help keep things organized. That way, all landscaping violation codes will begin with the letter L, all parking violation codes will begin with the letter P, and so on. The code we're creating is for disallowed articles on a unit's balcony, so we'll name our code B for balcony and then AR for articles. Next, we'll enter a description for this code so that we know what it generally pertains to, just in case we forget what BAR stands for. This next area allows us to cite the specific article from the association's bylaws or rules and regulations that govern this specific issue. I'm going to copy and paste from those rules and regulations to save you the time of watching me type them in. And here they are. So, to paraphrase, this article states that balconies cannot be used for storage, and you also can't hang your laundry or similar articles out on the balcony either. Except for holiday decorations, which must be removed by the end of January. Our next section, Default CC&R, is grayed out. In order to use this section, you must check the box to use as defaults for CC&R records, and you definitely want to check this box. The more default information you enter with the code, the less you have to type when creating the individual CC&R records. I would also suggest checking the handheld organizers box as well. This allows you to use this default information when creating CC&R records using the TOPS Go application for tablets and smartphones, which is nice because it's not always easy to type on the keyboards on those devices. Even if you don't have TOPS Go, I would suggest checking this box. You may want to get it down the road, and this will save you the time of going back into each of your CC&R codes to check this box later. Now, let's enter our detailed description for this violation. The detailed description is the plain language version of the violation. Again, I'll just paste this language in from another document so you don't have to watch me type it in. Because this code is about articles on the balcony, I've omitted mentioning storage. That will be the next CC&R code we create. Essentially, I've entered the same info from the article above, but without the legalese. There is a button here which will replace the detailed description information with the CC&R article information from above. I don't suggest doing this. Because the TOPS form letter program has merge codes for all 3 of these fields, I don't see any reason why you wouldn't want to make use of all 3. This is especially useful when you're creating the violation record for the owner. At that time, you can change this detailed description field to make it more specific. So rather than having it list these generic articles, you can change that wording to state that there are bathing suits and beach towels on the balcony. Next, we have the action needed to resolve the violation. Here you'll say what needs to be done in order to become compliant with the above article. Again, we'll paste from another document, and our action needed to resolve has been entered. Now let me show you how this works. First, let's take a look at one of our violation letter templates. Here you can see we have our 3 merge codes that relate back to those 3 fields of information about the violation. Around those merge codes is the standard language of our letter, so everyone gets the exact same letter, just the violation details change with the use of the codes. Now here's what the letter looks like with all of that language merged in. As you can see, the wording flows from standard letter to merged in data to create one seamless violation letter. Hopefully, now it makes sense as to why it's important to use all 3 of these fields. Next, we'll set up the action table for this CC&R code. The action table tells TOPS when this violation is due for a reinspection, and if it is still outstanding after that reinspection, what the next step is. Our first action is going to be to send the initial letter out to the owner notifying him that he's in violation. So, we'll set the number of days for our first action to 0, meaning this action should occur today. For each action level, you can set an administrative fee or fine that will get charged to the owner for this violation. Most communities don't fine on the first notice, so we'll leave the admin fees field blank for this level. Next, we'll need to give this level a name. Since this is the first time this violation has been noted along with the first notification that will be sent to the owner, then we'll name this action level First Violation Notice. Next, we'll choose a letter from our list of form letter templates that will get sent to the owner to notify him of this violation. To do that, we'll click on this folder button here. That will bring up our letter selector. I'll choose letter 6, First ACC Violation, and click OK to complete the selection. Next, we'll set up our second action level. We will need to re-inspect this violation and send another notice out to the owner if it is still outstanding after 15 days. So, the number of days here will be 15. We won't be charging a fine for this second notice, so we'll again leave the admin fees field blank. Continuing with our naming convention, we'll call this action level Second Violation Notice. Now, let's choose the letter to be associated with this action level. We'll again click on our folder button, and we'll choose letter 7, Second ACC Violation, and then click OK to select this letter. Okay, on to action level 3. The first step again is to set the number of days. Here is where it gets a little tricky. If you have your violation action method in your CC&R control info set to last action date, meaning the next action date is based on the last action date, then you will enter 15 days here. So, 15 days after the last inspection, we'll send another letter. If you have your violation action method in your CC&R control info set to create date, then you'll enter 30 here, meaning 30 days after we first noted this violation, a second notice will go out. For more information on this setting in CC&R control info, please watch the CC&R control info setup class. For the purposes of this class, I'm going to enter my dates based on create date because it makes it more obvious as to the timeline for these different actions. Because of that, we'll enter 30 into this field. Now for this action level, we're going to start fining this owner. So we'll enter a $100 fine into the admin fees field. The name for this action level will be Final Violation Notice. Again, we'll choose a letter to send to the owner. Appropriately, this letter is called Final ACC Violation. You could end your action table here, but I like to create one more level just for me. So, after a total of 45 days from the time this violation was first noted, with no fine, we are going to refer this to the attorney for legal action. This action doesn't have a letter associated with it because we're sending this off to the attorney and not to the owner. At this stage, there are 2 things I'd like to point out about the violation action table. The first is that we can set up to 10 different actions. The next is that there are two different action types that can be associated with each code. The first type, General, which we have selected for this code, will allow us to use this exact same action table for each code that we create that also has an action type of General. The second action type, User Defined, allows you to have a different action table for those particular codes. Most of your CC&R codes should use the General type because those will relate to the inspection policies of the community. But there are some instances where you'd need a different action timeline, such as vehicles parked on the right-of-way. I doubt the board would like it if you waited 45 days before towing that car. Okay, now let's save this new CC&R code. And we'll create one more. If you remember, our original article said that balconies cannot be used for storage and that you cannot hang articles from them either. So, we're now going to create a code for the storage portion of that article. We'll call our code B for balcony, ST for storage. And then we'll type in our description of this code. Again, we'll copy our same article information from the association's rules and regulations. We'll also check off our two boxes for using defaults for CC&R records and handheld organizers, and then enter our plain language detailed description for this code, which we'll paste in from our other document. We'll also paste in our action needed to resolve this violation to complete our setup of this CC&R code. Because we're using the general action type, the action table at the bottom is the same as the previous code we created. There's no need to make any changes to this because we're referencing the same article from the rules and regulations. So, just that quickly, we've created another CC&R code. There are two other functions that we can perform from the CC&R codes area. The first, Copy Codes, allows us to copy the CC&R codes from one community into another. This is useful if you have several communities within the same master association or district, and each community is subject to the same rules and regulations. To do this, we just click the drop-down to choose the source community. This is the community that we will be copying from. Then we'll choose the target community or communities that we'd like to copy to. Then we'll select if we want to copy just the CC&R codes or if we want to copy the CCR codes and action tables. Note that when we choose CCR codes and action tables, it only allows you to overwrite your existing action table information. Because we just spent all that time creating our general action table, we'll only copy the CC&R code information and then click Append to add the codes from Sample Condominium to our existing codes. And just like that, we've copied the codes over. The other function here is the ability to update the existing violation records if you've made changes to the action table for any of your codes. So, if you have a bunch of violation records created and you just notice that you have the final notice set to go out after 45 days, when it should actually be 50 days, you would just make that change on the action table on the code and then use this function to update all of those existing records. That way, you don't have to go into each record to update them individually. This completes our TOPS Professional CC&R Code Setup course. Thank you.